This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Oh, and you have arrived. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Check your ticket. Make sure you book the right flight, folks.
Yeah.
Because you just landed at the Creep Street International Airport.
That's right. This might be a Home Alone 2 situation for you.
Maybe it is.
Maybe you thought you were going to Florida, you landed in New York.
Hey.
Okay, we've all been there. If you're Kevin McAllister, or even if you just sometimes slap your cheeks, you're welcome.
I'm always slapping my cheeks.
Come on. He's talking about his ass cheeks. Anyway, this has nothing to do with Home Alone 2. This podcast. Dylan, what is this podcast even about?
This podcast? Well, it's about the strange, the unusual, the sinister,
The macabre.
the salacious.
Oh yeah, the paranormal?
Yes. And boy, do we have a big old dose of the paranormal today.
Yeah.
Now, quick little disclosure. We are recording this episode. We are visiting family of mine way in the countryside of the wilds of Michigan.
Big time.
And we are recording outside. It is a beautiful evening. So if you happen to hear a little bit of nature in the background, hey, just consider it a little bonus.
It's just a little something.
And we actually, the last time we did this was the Stanley Hotel.
That's right.
Episode.
That was another outdoor recording. And you know what? It was a blast. Happy to be doing it again. And you know what? It's beautiful out here, folks. We wish you could see it, but this is an audio medium. So, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is, but we are working on video content.
That's coming up.
Believe it, folks. Now, last week it was it was a big one.
It was it was our longest episode ever.
It was the biggest Creep Street episode to date. We gave him Gettysburg, the haunting of Farnsworth House. And boy, have the Creep Street citizens been gobbling that one up.
Oh my God. Thank you everyone for listening. We so appreciate it. And we thought it was just apropos for the time of year.
Absolutely.
And you know what? If you haven't listened to it yet, feel free to check it out. You don't have to listen to it at the 4th of July. You can listen to it at any time. If you're not American, you can still listen to it. You can still enjoy it. It's a great time.
Absolutely.
Check it out if you haven't. And for those who have listened, thanks.
Absolutely. Hey, and you know what, Maureen?
Yeah.
We got a special one-time shout-out.
That's right. Very excited about this one.
Folks, give it on up for the Savage Sandwich.
Wow, Sandwich. Thank you so much for being with us and being a part of the Creep Street Homeowners Association.
That's right. Sam has actually come and seen us live at all 3 C2E2s that we've done in Chicago.
Yes.
We love seeing her every year. It always puts a smile on our face.
Oh my God, what a pleasure. It's so nice. It's so honestly comforting.
Yes. I
Genuinely.
love knowing she's there.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
And I'm so happy, we are so happy to welcome her to the
Yes.
Creep Street Homeowners Association.
So we're grateful for your support. And you know what? Everyone out there, if you're a Patreon supporter or not, we are grateful to have you here with us. And we're going on a little bit of a cuckoo ride today.
Yes, we are. Maureen, what is it we're talking about today?
You guys, it's getting crazy. Today we are talking about medical personnel and the paranormal.
Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of ghosts and ghouls.
Incredible stuff, Dylan. I love it when you improvise.
Absolutely.
I love it. It's good stuff. Wow. Okay, so today it's going to be a little bit crazy. It's going to be a little bit scary. These are all stories that are, from the point of view of, a doctor, a nurse, a paramedic, a nurse's assistant, a physician's assistant, anything like that.
Correct.
Anything in the medical realm is where we got our stories from today. And we got them from all over the damn internet.
Oh, boy, did we scour. We
scoured. We scavenged.
We did.
We gathered.
Oh, we gathered.
I forgot about the word gather.
Gather.
I gathered. We gathered. But it was great. And this is going to be one of those episodes where we're going to come back to it later. We're going to add, we'll do a medical personnel 2, 3, going forward. Kind of similar to like our ritual games episodes or cursed movie sets or things like that. So if you have any other stories that you've either read online or a friend has or you have possibly, let us know, DM us, or you can email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
And we'll include it in the next round. So we are going to list off at the very top, as we, usually do, unless some silly goose like me forgets, we're going to list our sources.
Please do.
You know what? And here we go. First of all, and for my research as well, because Dylan and I both did a little research on this one.
Indeed.
A lot of Reddit.
Oh,
that
yes.
was kind of my best friend for this research process. So
oh, yes.
Reddit at the very top, literally all over the damn forum, the site, whatever you want to call it.
Gotta love it.
Then I used a collection of stories from nursa.com, and the collection is called Ghost Stories Told by Nurses, Halloween Edition.
Whoa.
Which is exciting. Then we have another collection of stories from ems1.com, and the collection is called What Has Been Your Most Paranormal Experience as an EMT? Then we have an article from a Thought Catalog, and the collection is titled 49 Real Nurses Share the Terrifying Hospital Ghost Stories That Scared Them to Death. And that was compiled by Eric Redding. And then we have 17 horror stories starring an ER near you, compiled by Renee Blinn, and that is at didyouKnowFacts.com. And then we're actually going to have a little excerpt from a TikTok, believe it or not.
All right.
And the TikToker / the TikTok account, however you want to spin it. And you can find this person at, I'm going to be honest, I don't really know how to say it out loud because I think it's a first, middle, and last name.
Oh, okay.
So I would say Man I Johns, MAANIJOHNS.
I think that was an excellent try. Obviously, our condolences if we didn't get it right, but I think that was a good try.
Thank you so much. It was hard, but you know what? Nevertheless, she persisted.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, Dylan, what about your sources for today?
Well, I went to, because this was, mainly your episode, but I contributed a little bit. I went to my main man, Brent Swanser, over at Mysterious Universe.
We love the guy. We can't help ourselves.
He had a great little compilation of freaky ass stories called A Selection of Personal Cases of Strange Paranormal Phenomenon by Medical Personnel.
There you go. All right, so just in case we didn't make it clear up top, these are more paranormal stories, spooky stories. These aren't super, gruesome kind of nasty, gory stories.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, reading up on all of this, though, I read a lot of that.
You did.
Maybe that'll be a Patreon episode for freaks that are, and I mean that with all, in an endearing way.
Of
when
course.
I say freaks, that would love to hear about medical horror stories in that kind of realm. Because
Absolutely.
that's also, exciting to hear about. But just to let you know, that's not what we're doing today. It's more about the paranormal.
Yes.
So I will kick us off here. This is just a little something from Reddit, and it is from a user called Just Panda Pants.
Okay, hey.
Which we love.
I'm already on their side.
I mean, who doesn't love a good panda, for Christ's sake? All right, and here is what she has to say. I'm an RN, and while I was a student, I was caring for a lady who had end-stage renal failure, had a DNR, and was shutting down. We were having a little chat when she stopped, looked over my shoulder, and said, "Bill's here, love. I gotta go," and swiftly stopped breathing. Read her old notes, and Bill was her deceased husband.
Wow. Well, that's pretty impressive. That's really
I thought that was
sweet.
kind of a nice one.
That was a nice one.
It was actually sweet. It wasn't scary at all.
I like that it was a sweet one because as we go through these, they'll start getting progressively more freaky.
I just wanted to start us off with something, and I just think that's so comforting.
That was really sweet. I like that we kicked it off with that because that's a real sweet one. That's real sweet, short and sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, what a it's still sad someone passed, but it's a beautiful thing,
And you hear about things like that happening where, someone passes or they're, ending, they're coming close to the end, and, they see someone, a loved one is there to kind of help them go on to the other side. And there's been stories that in different cultures that like dogs do this, like spirit dogs will be there to help you to get to the other side. Or
right.
I think we talked a bit about this whole situation in our Grim Reaper episode.
Right,
if anyone is interested in some more facts there. But
yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to start us off, a little amuse-bouche.
I love that, Momo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dylan, why don't you pop off with a little bit of a little something?
Well, I got one for you. This story was posted to Reddit by someone who goes by the username Difficult Lemon.
Oh, brother.
This person is a nurse who works in a nursing home, and obviously, when you're working in a nursery home, you see a lot of patients pass away. You're dealing with elderly patients. Well, according to them, one of their patients hasn't yet left, even though they have long since passed. Here we go. I had a new patient move into one of the rooms on my hall that my previous patient had just passed in. My new patient kept calling at night saying that there was this woman who kept coming into her room and trying to talk to her. At first, I just passed it off as her being in her 90s and struggling with dementia, so I assured her that I would lock her door at night to make sure no one could come in. After about a week of this continuing to happen, I sat down with her and was asking what this woman looked like, thinking she may just be hallucinating her daughter or sister or something. And she proceeded to tell me that this woman had a pink robe on with blue fuzzy slippers and her hair up in curlers, and the woman would come in and sit at the foot of her bed, pat the new patient's feet, and try to talk to her, but she couldn't understand what she was saying. I almost pissed myself. The patient that I had had in that room prior to my new one went to bed every night in her pink house robe, blue slippers, and her hair in curlers. It stopped after about 2 weeks.
Wow.
Well, there you go.
There you have it. And I know this isn't the most important thing, but I like that she decided to really go the old-fashioned route, the stereotypical route. She says, I'm wearing a pink robe.
Right.
I'm wearing slippers, and I'm putting curlers in. I'm being myself.
Right.
I already have a pink robe. I'm a third of the way to this woman.
Yes, you do, and you wear it often.
I wear it a lot.
Boy, is it soft and cozy.
We love it. You know what? God bless. Shout out to my mom for that. A great gift. Now we have another story from Reddit from a user called Smelly Cheese Feet. And this story was told to Smelly Cheese Feet by their great-grandmother's nurse. My great-grandmother was 94 and just started suffering from dementia. She told the home nurses and me that there was a little boy in the corner of the living room who would taunt and tease my great-grandmother while laughing at her, telling her she was going to die. Well, at first it was a little disturbing and we all shrugged it off because of her dementia, but then shit got real when my best friend came over with this little boy who was about 3 or 4. The little guy pointed over at the same corner and yelled, "I'm gonna beat you up." When we asked him what that was about, he told us that he saw another little boy in the corner and that he was not nice. We flipped the fuck out. I got shivers just typing this. Maybe Nana wasn't hallucinating.
Wow. Now, that makes you wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the ghost of a kid who was just a little piece of shit?
A little chode.
Or is this something more sinister presenting as a child?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, not that kids can't be little assholes, but this kid sounds like a royal a-hole.
Yeah, it's kind of another degree, you know.
Like, saying you're going to die. Like, what a little piece of shit. It almost makes me think, maybe it was something presenting as a child.
Yeah, it's possible.
You would think if it was trying to scare somebody, then it would present as something other than a child. To be unless it's a child with like fangs and, glowing eyes or something. But no, this sounds like just a real asshole kid.
But, kids can be kind of scary, too, in ghost form. You know what I mean? It can be creepy. I don't really know. And who knows if maybe this entity or ghost or whatever wasn't necessarily trying to scare. It wasn't like a demon, or, whatever, feeding off the fear in our fear bong way that we talk about. But maybe it's just a chode.
Yeah.
Just kind of an asshole.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
It shows us that anyone can be the worst.
Absolutely.
But I'm glad that kid came in there, the other kid, and was like, I'm going to beat your ass. I like that in my opinion, I bet that kind of showed him.
Standing up for Nana.
Yeah.
Good. Stand up for your nanas, folks.
Yeah.
For your nanas and your grandpas, and stand up for them.
Yes.
And
I thought that was so nice.
Whoop a little ass if you gotta.
Yeah, because maybe these things, sometimes it's just genuine, just hallucinations from dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever is happening, of course.
Right.
But then maybe sometimes the fact that your brain is being altered makes you more susceptible or aware of things that really are there that others just can't see. But maybe that's why the boy could see, because kids are more in tune with these things.
Right.
Who knows? But yeah, I like that. The thesis is stand up for your nan.
That's right.
Dylan, pop off.
Now this next story was posted to Reddit by a user named LilPin13.
Gorgeous.
Now, this person worked in the ward of a hospital that treated POWs after the Vietnam War.
Oh my gosh, wow.
One half of the ward was used for same-day surgery, and the other half was an inpatient ward. So at night, the part of the ward that was dedicated to the same-day surgery would be locked up. No one would be in there, nor, not staff, unless they had to go in to get something, but no one would be in there. Yet several times during the night, the call buttons on the beds in that side of the ward would go off. That side of the ward had 5 rooms, and it was specifically 3 of these 5 rooms where the call buttons would be activated. What's even weirder is that on that side of the ward, there was a storage room that had once been a surgery room, but hadn't been a surgery room for at least 5 years. Call buttons in that room would even activate mysteriously. They would hear what sounded like disembodied moaning coming from that side of the ward that was locked away. And all of this happened between the hours of 1 and 4 a.m. Now, Maureen, let's hear the story.
Please.
The hospital admission staff came over and asked why there were people moaning in the rooms next door. When they were told there were no patients in that room and no one had used that room in years, they got creeped out and would run past that room. Watching all this gave me an idea. One night, the call buttons went off 7 or 8 times in a row. I was tired of getting the keys and going into the same creepy dark room several times in this one night. So I stood there near an empty bed and told the air that I was giving the patient something for pain. Then I said that I hoped they felt better, said goodnight, locked the door, and went back to the other side of the ward. It quit going off that night after that. I knew others had the same issue and told them to try the pain medication trick. And eventually, we would give the patients pain medication on the first call, and it would be quiet for the rest of the night. Other times, we wouldn't do it, and the button would go off multiple times a night. How wild is that?
Yeah, that's very scary. That came up a lot in my research, is the call button going off.
Call buttons. And it makes sense, right? You know what it makes me think of? This was forever ago, but do you remember, and this isn't medical or hospital related, but what was it called? The Stranger in Room
1042?
I think so. Stranger in Room 1042.
That was one of our earlier eps.
And it was about this murder that had happened in this hotel. Go check it out. I won't spoil it. But one of the things that kept happening was the phone kept ringing, like the front desk, and then it would be taken off the hook and left off the hook. Very weird, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, what a weird story. I love the idea of the call buttons. We have talked about how maybe ghosts can use electricity to communicate or to try to get communicate, at least, or to get attention or whatever, because of their own energy. I mean, all of us have electrical energy within us, and so that's part of the way that people can get through. I mean, Stranger Things. Absolutely.
Think about those Christmas lights, all that stuff. It's, even though, that wasn't a ghost, but you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Okay, now this next one that I have is from an EMT named Scott McCary.
Ooh.
Yes, and this is a story that Scott had heard from a supervisor of his, another paramedic. I had a paramedic supervisor back in the 90s who had 20 years in EMS and had a reputation for being a tough guy with a big heart. He told us a story that raised the hair on the back of my neck one day that I will never forget. In 1981, he was an EMT for a volunteer fire department in a New Hampshire farming community. In this town lived an elderly brother and sister along with an elderly cousin on a sprawling farm. They were very well liked by the townsfolk, and they would offer a plot of their farmland to anyone for the asking with one simple rule. No matter what they grew, they had to donate 1/3 of their yield to area food banks. This was just one of the reasons they were so beloved. As they got older, Mary, the sister, became frail with osteoporosis and was admitted to a nursing home. John, her brother, was left to look after the farm. One day, the cousin who lived nearby was unable to reach John by phone and became concerned. He went to the farm and entered the house. He discovered John in an upstairs bedroom unconscious, suffering from a stroke. He immediately called 911. Word of trouble at the farm spread quickly, and soon the siren was blaring, notifying volunteers in town. The town's police and BLS ambulance raced to the farm. An ambulance from an adjoining community was also dispatched. My boss was one of the EMTs responding and was familiar with the family. When he arrived, he said he walked into the house and was told to hurry as CPR was underway. As he entered the front hall, on his left was a sitting room, and in the room he noticed an elderly woman sitting in a rocking chair, smiling back at him. He thought how happy and peaceful she looked was a bit odd given what was going on. He then recognized her. It was Mary. They get John to the ambulance and transported him to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. As my boss was filling out his report at the nurse's station, he made a comment to one of the staff of how sad that was, that Mary was well enough to go home and then have John die like that. The staff member gave me a strange look and asked what I was talking about. My boss said how great Mary looked at the house. He was then informed that Mary passed away the day before at the nursing home and could not possibly be at the farm. Thinking he mistook someone else for Mary, he asked around about the female who was at the house. There were no females during the call. All the responders were male. He then described what she was wearing, including an oversized set of pearls and a pink flowered dress to the staff. The dress was Mary's favorite. He had no doubt that the pleasant elderly woman who gave him a warm smile was indeed Mary. 2 days later, my boss and his girlfriend decided to attend the wake for John and Mary, double wake and funeral, as Mary was the girlfriend's grade school teacher. As my boss walked into the funeral home, he gazed over the coffin holding Mary and nearly fainted. For there was Mary, wearing her favorite pink flowered dress and the oversized pearl necklace, exactly as she wore 2 days earlier at the farm.
Wow.
Yes. So that's another one that is sad, of course, because 2 people passed away.
Right, exactly.
But it's also comforting and sweet to think, like, Mary was there to help her brother pass on and to be there for him during that time. And she wasn't scared because she had already died and she knew that everything was going to be okay and that everything just, we don't understand it, but it'll make sense.
Exactly.
And she was there to help him along. I just thought that was nice, but also still, I'm sure, very eerie and scary for that paramedic.
For sure. But wow, what a great story.
Yeah.
Well, this one's kind of a two-parter because it's the same poster sharing a couple stories.
Yeah.
But this was a Reddit user who goes by just simply JG, and they work in a hospital where apparently folks will glimpse patients in beds where there shouldn't be patients, meaning patients who had already passed.
Yikes.
Here's the tale.
There was that time a few months ago when a patient told me she felt like there were 3 other people in the ward room with her, in each of the other 3 beds around her. They were talking back and forth and whispering, she said. But the weird thing was, she was alone in the 4-bed room. I pulled back the curtains and showed her myself. All of the other beds were empty, and there were no visitors or staff in the room with her. As if that weren't disturbing enough, a few weeks later, a different patient said the exact same thing when she had been left alone in the same room. She described it exactly the same way, saying they were whispering back and forth and it was keeping her awake. I felt a chill up my spine when she told me that, but reassured her that the room was empty and she was simply imagining things. People have enough to worry about when they're recovering from surgery. We don't need them fretting about specters and ghosts when they should be worried about physio and discharge appointments, lifting and restrictions and medication adjustments. So we keep these stories to ourselves. What we don't tell the patients, what we're not supposed to tell them, is that there are ghosts here. Just like any other hospital, people pass away and their spirits sometimes linger, or maybe it's just a fragment of them that remains behind. Something that science can't explain yet. There have been more than a few events that have raised the hair on the back of my neck, and some have sent me into hysterical screaming fits. But those types of reactions are frowned upon in the hospital, so I try to stay calm.
Now, this is a follow-up from the very same poster, a similar story. This didn't happen to them, but it happened to a coworker who was a nurse there also, and she says that there is a phantom nurse who can be seen peering into rooms, and once when trying to take a nap on break, she had a frightening encounter.
We had a staff room where there are 2 small couches and a TV. Some nurses go in there to sleep during breaks on the night shift, and we try our best not to wake them up. She was sleeping on the couch there one night, and a bright light woke her up. There's an adjoining room with a bathroom and lockers, so she figured one of the nurses had gone in there and left the light on. I looked over at the door, she told me. You know how it has that little glass window and you can see through to the other side? Yeah, I said. I see it every day. So there's this woman on the other side of the door, and she's looking at me through the glass. I got shivers up my spine when she said this. Maybe because it was the night shift. Maybe because that was where I was going on my break in an hour to sleep, or at least try to.
Interesting, they said, the stories we're not supposed to tell patients. Meaning it's almost like, is it this thing that the administration or the upstairs folks say, no, don't talk about that?
Or maybe it's kind of like an unspoken rule, like maybe it's not, or
Sure.
it's either an unspoken rule where it's just kind of understood that you're not supposed to upset the patients or whatever.
Right.
Or maybe it's openly talked about and they're just like, hey, these things are happening. Don't tell the patients. Don't freak them out.
Right.
I could see it going either way, and I'd be curious to know from other, nurses or doctors or, anyone working at a hospital what their kind of protocol is. Because I'm sure it depends on each hospital and whatever, but to me it kind of seems like if you've been working in a hospital long enough, you've at least had an experience you can't explain.
Right.
You might not, even if you're not like, I saw a ghost, you're like, yeah, something weird happened and I don't know why it happened. So it seems so common. So, and I also really liked how the poster said, that maybe this is something that science can't explain yet.
Yes.
Which is something that I'm kind of in the same boat with, where it's like, I think these things really are real and are happening and can be proven.
Yeah.
We just don't know how yet.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, I think we can figure out how these things happen, but we just don't know. We're not there yet.
Well, Maureen, there's actually a little more to this story.
Oh, my goodness.
So, as we know, there was a woman looking at her through the glass of this door.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she continues on saying,
And so I see her there, but she's not really looking at me. She's just kind of staring straight ahead. And the first thing I notice about her is her hair. It was in this very old-fashioned sort of style, not like anything you'd see today. It was like it was from the 70s or earlier maybe, and she was wearing these funky blue pinstripe scrubs and a nurse's cap. Nobody wears a cap anymore these days. And those scrubs, they looked like the ones, in the lobby, how they have those on display from way back when. Yeah, they look just like that. So she's just standing there, staring straight ahead, and I thought it was the IV nurse at first, because sometimes they'd come in during the night shift and use the bathroom or whatever. So I yelled at her, "Hey, turn that light off, will ya? I'm trying to sleep in here." But she just kept staring straight ahead. So I just put the pillow over my head and tried to sleep some more. Then when I woke up later on, and that light was still on. So I asked around. Nobody came in there during the night, and that room is locked, so it wasn't a patient. And I saw the IV nurse later on, and they were not dressed like that. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I know who it was, though.
So, I mean, that sounds more residual, but...
Well, I don't know.
I know, but according to her.
Yeah.
The woman was the ghost of a nurse who had died driving home after a long night shift and had fallen asleep at the wheel.
Oh.
Yes, this story, it's got some legs to it. It's a bit longer, but...
Okay.
Based on the description she'd given, an older coworker had recognized her. She said that was exactly what the old nurse who used to work there looked like. Something occurred to me as she finished the story. That was really weird. My patient in room 14 told me last night that they saw someone peeking their head in the room and looking at them. And sometimes they would stand in the doorway and just stare at them for a while. She said the person had a very old-fashioned haircut and had old-fashioned scrubs. She thought it was a ghost or maybe a hallucination. Ghosts and hallucinations are commonplace on the post-surgical floor, and sometimes it can be difficult to tell the two apart. Pain medication-induced post-operative delirium is not unheard of, especially in the elderly.
Yeah, you know what? When I was doing my research, I came across a lot of similar stories to that, where it was... And it was almost always a nurse, too, where
Yeah.
it was a nurse who had formerly or had previously worked at the hospital was there. She was back.
Right.
And sometimes she didn't even die on the premises. But she came there. And I think it makes sense because nursing, I mean, it's a calling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not to say that there are shitty nurses out there, of course. And,
Oh,
and nurses
sure.
that shouldn't be nurses, of course. I'm not saying,
Like,
whatever.
I mean, it's
But
like any profession.
it's
There's
exactly-
people who are good at it, people who suck at it, and
Exactly.
everything in between.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not trying to say like every nurse is perfect.
no.
However, I mean, to be a nurse, you have to be so caring, so kind, so smart, and so committed that
Yes.
like I think a lot of nurses, like, it's a passion and it's a calling. And so, like, that is the place where the hospital or wherever they work is where they put in so much of their energy that I think it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
That they still want to be there. They still want to care for other people. They want to be in the action. And so I think it makes sense.
Hey, and we're not just saying that because we're at my mama's house and my mom happens to be a nurse.
That's right.
We're not just,
We're not just blowing smoke.
No. We truly mean it. It does take, it takes a
couldn't do
strong but tender person. You have to be both strong and tender at the same time.
And you have to, look good wearing scrubs. You have to stand a lot.
You gotta look good.
You do gotta look good. I mean, it's a lot. It couldn't be me. But I'm glad others do it because we need you. And thank you for all that you do.
But this nurse she speaks of, to me, sounds residual. The fact that she wouldn't make eye contact. It was like she was staring ahead.
That's
whereas,
true.
like, the little kid sounds intelligent, at least to some degree.
I forgot that she wasn't making eye contact. That's true.
That was it. That was the point where I was like, I wonder if this is residual. But
Yeah.
anyway, Momo, what you got for us?
All right. Next, we have a quick story from someone named Courtney.
Okay, Courtney.
And this is what Courtney has to say.
I was working in an ICU and had a patient who would only repeat what was said to her, and I was with her all night. One time I went into the room and she started telling me all the ways she died. I died because of a narcotic overdose. I died because I took too much insulin. I died on a sunny Sunday afternoon, etc. Then later, she looked up at the ceiling and said, "They're all still here." I ran out of that room as fast as I could. Another time, I had a blind patient who kept asking me what time it was all night long. One time I went in to check on him, and he says to me, "It's the witching hour." It was 3:33. I walked out.
Whoa.
So those were two kind of weird things going on.
Okay.
So let's break it down.
It's getting a little more sinister here.
Yeah, so the first person, usually, she would only repeat, but then she starts popping off saying all the different ways she died.
Right.
So it's like, is that kind of a sign of maybe a reincarnation type situation where she's remembering her past lives and her past deaths?
Right.
Or is she maybe kind of taking on and just repeating the ways that other people have died, other spirits that are maybe in the room?
Right.
I wonder what that was about, but that would be scary as hell. And then for her to say they're all still here.
Right.
Are those other people that died in the hospital, are they people she knew? Are they friends? Are they family? I don't know. And then also that one guy, he didn't know what time it was, but he did still know it was 3:33.
I know. How wild is that?
I mean, I don't know. There's stuff going on. That's all I gotta say. There's just stuff going on.
Oh, yeah. There absolutely is.
All right, Dylan, pop off. What's going on?
Well, I got another one from old Reddit here.
Oh, brother.
This one comes from a poster named Thiek, spelled Thiek.
We love it.
They work at a nursing home, which is said to be haunted by a creepy old woman, and here is what they had to say.
We had a woman in our assisted living unit. She was a very sweet lady with dementia who could never understand how to use her call light for assistance. So every night she would meander over to her neighbor's apartment and ask him to get someone to help her get ready for bed. He would then put on his call light and tell whomever came that the lady needed help. The man is still with us, and he has no cognitive deficits or memory problems. He's here because of severe kidney issues and can't manage all of his tubes and medications. The lady became ill with pancreas issues and stopped knocking on the man's door for about a month. She sadly passed away one evening around 4 p.m. At approximately 7 p.m. that night, while the family was still in the lady's room with her, the man put on his call light and said that Jane Doe was ready for bed. Creepy, right? The CNA figured he was just picking up an old routine. So she asked him, "She came here?" He went on to explain that she must have snuck in the door because he didn't hear her knock. She was wearing a white robe and holding her rosary beads. The CNA told me all this, and I, being a huge skeptic, didn't believe it. He must have been dreaming. The family finally left, and when the funeral home director arrived to take the body, I went with him to help move her onto the cart. We walk into the room, and there she was, lying in bed, white gown, with rosary beads in hand. The neighbor still occasionally puts on his light for her.
So that's interesting because, Maureen pointed out, she would have already, before they took her, would probably have been dressed in her white robe and with her rosary beads. But that man wouldn't have known because he's in a bed in another room. He wouldn't have known what she was wearing unless she was there in person. So, yeah, that's very interesting. And also kind of sweet again.
Oh, my God, I think it's so sweet.
Yeah.
I think that she, maybe she just wanted to go over there one last time.
Yeah.
And connect with her, with her neighbor, her homie. Or maybe she hadn't realized she had passed yet, and so she just was going with the flow, of course.
Right.
But I just think it's so nice that the man still turns the light on for her sometimes.
Isn't that so sweet?
I think that's great. That's so sweet. And you know what? It shows you it's the little things.
Absolutely.
It's the little things. I think that's really sweet. And I wonder if she passed away holding her rosary beads, or if someone put the rose, like one of her family members or something, put her rosary in her hand after she passed.
Right. Yeah.
I would be curious.
That's interesting because she passed around 4. Mm-hmm. And it was around 7 when the man called. So who knows? But I would assume maybe there was at least some family there pretty soon after she passed, or maybe even already there to be with her when she passed. I mean, who knows? We don't know all the
details, but yeah.
But yeah, that's very fascinating. Mm-hmm. Very fascinating. So it was within that 3-hour gap.
Yeah, crazy. But like we said, kind and sweet.
Yeah,
we like it. All right, and I have another story here, and this one is actually, there was no name attached. So thank you to whoever this is. We appreciate it.
I was working my regular 7 to 7 night shift in a bone marrow transplant unit with one other nurse. We had 5 patients, and it was about 3:30 a.m. My coworker had just come out of room 4, and I startled her as she came around the corner. She had been emptying a urinal when the bathroom door had closed on her, which of course freaked her out, and she spilled urine on herself, but I digress. She proceeded to tell me that there was a young gentleman who had been in that room who had died a rather gruesome death. Evidently, this man was slated to go home, but one night, around 4, the nurses heard a thump, the sound of someone falling. They rushed into the room, and this man was in the bathroom, central line out, and blood everywhere. They coded him, but he died right there in the bathroom. No one is sure why he pulled his line or what had happened, but evidently the scene was a bloodbath. Horrible, horrible. Now here comes the scary part. A few weeks later, a little old lady is in that room and asks the nurse if someone had died in there. The nurse explained that this is a hospital and it was likely that someone could have died. Well, the lady says, "I think a young guy died in here." The nurse asks why, and the lady responds, "'Cause he's talking to me." Okay, I am not making this up. This lady has a central line, triple lumen. The nurse goes in there later, and there is blood everywhere. One of her lines is cut. Not pulled out, but cut. There are no scissors in the room. The lady says he did it.
Wow. Now, first of all,
Yeah.
not only is that awful, but then imagine having to experience that and you're covered in piss.
I know. I liked that. It was a little bit of world building, kind of built up your senses. You understand, like, when you're a nurse or a doctor or a nurse's assistant, physician's assistant, all of these jobs.
Oh.
It's tough, and you might have piss or shit or blood on you at any time.
Right.
Or anything else.
Right.
And that is a lot. That is a cross to bear, my friend. And
then you got to deal with the supernatural while you're covered in shit.
Come on.
I mean, good golly.
But yeah, so this story,
A little darker.
A
Wow.
little darker. That maybe this guy that died there, why did he want someone else to be inflicted with this, possibly bleeding out?
Right.
I'm glad I get the impression that this old woman that was there did not die from this.
Yes.
But, I mean, very scary stuff.
Truly. And Maureen, I think it's time to up the creep factor here.
Oh, brother.
Some Reddit posters have told of encounters with entities that seem almost like they're omens of death, almost like a Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
Usually they're seen just before or after death, and here's what one poster has to say.
Used to work in a skilled nursing facility. I was usually assigned to the Alzheimer's ward, and one night I'm in the linen room stocking my cart, and I heard someone shuffle up behind me. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around, and there was no one else in the room. The door was still shut, too. Another lady started to complain that a man was coming into her room at night. Again, Alzheimer's, so I didn't think much of it. So to reassure her, I told her I'd check on her throughout the night. She complained of this man every night for 2 more weeks when I asked her to describe him to me. He's real handsome and wears a black suit. Oh, he's right behind you now, honey. That freaked me the fuck out. Of course, there was no one behind me. She died the next night in her sleep.
Wow. I mean...
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this in other episodes. Specifically, I'm remembering our Grim Reaper episode.
Yes, your episode. Yes, you made that one, yeah.
Thank you so much. But yeah, that there are these entities possibly that are there to bring, like I was kind of mentioning before, are there to bring you to the other side.
Yes.
Now, would it be crazy to get to the talk?
Let's get to the talk. I hear it ticking right now.
Yeah, I think we're talking.
Rather than explaining this to you, we're just gonna
play the damn thing.
So set us up, Mo. What is this about?
So there was, I don't know if trend is really the right word, I don't know, but there was a bunch of replies and videos and stitches, if you will, of people responding to someone asking if anyone has experienced this phenomenon that is very interesting, and we'll have to get more into at another day, another date, another ep. But essentially, it's that when you get into a car crash, I'm sure it would be the same for any. This has happened in lots of different emergency situations, but kind of specifically a car crash, that someone is there to help you.
Right.
That maybe isn't there on our plane, in our realm, in the way that we understand, or they completely disappear, or we don't know. But this is enough that a lot of people have stories about it. So we are going to listen to this user, Man I John.
Okay.
At Man I John. We're going to listen to her story about it. I will admit, she talks really fast. So just kind of prepare yourself for that. And I am not familiar with her account, so I don't know exactly, what's going on in her life. But she does talk about the man who pays my bills. Is this a boyfriend? Is this a father? We don't know. But just know it's a man in her life.
Oh, okay.
Who was in the car with her at this time.
All right.
It's not my place to ask more questions.
Hey.
You know what I mean? If you have a man to pay your bills, that's kind of great. Enjoy it. God bless. Pop off, queen. I'm happy for you. So let's give it a listen, and here we go.
Okay, hi. This actually happened to me, and it was crazy. So in 2019, the person who pays my bills and we were involved in a catastrophic car accident that left me disabled. We were not wearing seatbelts. Please always wear your seatbelt. So basically, he hydroplaned into a tree, and it was nothing he could do to stop that. So he acted as my seatbelt and like tried to strap me, and of course that didn't work, but you know, at least he tried. So we rammed tree. From how I started the story to now, we had the same story. Now what I'm about to tell you, we didn't. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? But whatever. So I open the car door. I'm like, help, help, help. This lady comes, drags me out from underneath like my arms and onto the grass. So it was road, grass, and then the ravine where we hit. So she's like, my name's Amber. I'm a nursing student. Keep talking to me. So I'm talking to her. I'm coughing blood. I'm spitting glass on her. She's like, it's okay. Just talk. All I can smell is car crash, right? So I'm talking to her, but I'm like, I'm scared. I have really bad anxiety. I have panic attacks. I feel like I'm going to panic. She's like, no, it's fine. She's just rocking me back and forth, and she's just being so like cradling. Like she's treating me like I'm her child, right? So the truth was that once I got out, he got locked in and they had to wait for the jaws of life to get him out. But I don't know any of this. I'm just on the ground. The police were notified at 4:41 of the car accident, but the paramedics didn't get there till 4:51. So it was a 10-minute time span exactly. The police get there, of course, earlier, and they're like, what's going on? They can see my injuries, but I can't see my injuries. Amber's like, she has broken ankles. Both of her ankles are broken. And I don't freak out because I remember when she was dragging me, I saw blood rims around my ankles. So it didn't cause me to panic because it was like, okay. But I was still like, what the freak? So then she says, I don't want her to go into shock. And so I jump up. I'm like, shock? I don't want to go into shock. People die from shock. Like, shock? Like, I'm freaking out now. And she's like, no, you're not going to go into shock. It's okay. It's okay. She leans me back. I can't see my injuries. Nobody will let me see what's wrong. But I now am aware that, you know, I got broken ankles. So then the paramedics come, they load me into the vehicle and the ambulance, and then I'm like, okay, Amber, you're gonna call, right? She's like, I'm gonna call. I know what hospital you're going to. It's okay. Everything's fine. I'm like, okay. I never hear from Amber again. Okay. Amber was a little larger woman. Like, she wasn't like huge, but she was larger, and she was a dark-skinned woman, and I believe she had her hair in a ponytail, and like, it was so real, y'all. It was so real. So I never heard from her again. Everybody on the scene was like, no, there was no Amber. Sorry, it was a man that helped you out the car. From the person who pays my bills perspective, he basically was like, you were screaming my name, bloody murder all the time until the man helped you out the car. And I'm like, oh. Like, I'm like, no, y'all, like, Amber was there. So it was the craziest experience ever. And, you know, I was really thankful that she was there. And, you know, now I'm like, it is this, like, I talk to everybody and they're like, yeah, sometimes that happens, but wild, completely wild. Thanks, Amber.
So that is just one of many accounts very similar to this.
Yeah.
And I thought that this was appropriate for this episode rather than an episode or a section of an episode we do in the future about things like this happening. I wanted to include it now because this person said that they were training to be a nurse.
Yes, absolutely. You know, the whole phenomenon about getting pulled out of wreckage is something that's not unheard of. In one of our Patreon exclusive episodes, we did a sports and the paranormal.
Yes.
You know, when the paranormal and the world of sports have crossed over, and something kind of similar was Dale Earnhardt Jr. had gotten into a nasty crash. So the NASCAR racer, he'd gotten into a nasty crash and felt hands grip him underneath his arms, under his armpits, and pull him from the wreckage.
Yes.
He literally felt that, and he wanted, and afterward, when he was okay, he wanted to know the name of the person who pulled him out so he could thank them, honor them, you know. And if everyone was like, no, that didn't happen, he's like, let me see footage, because of course it's, you know, it's a broadcast, NASCAR's broadcast worldwide. Watch the tape back. No one did it. No one did it. And so some people wonder, he even wonders if maybe his father was the one that did it. As we know, his father, Dale Earnhardt, was a world-famous NASCAR driver who unfortunately died in a horrific crash in a race. And yeah, he assumes maybe that was Dad pulling him out of the wreckage. So that's kind of a phenomenon we've heard about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think it's so amazing. It's so interesting. And there was one person who commented on this video and said,
as a first responder, I believe these angels are the souls of first responders who have already passed.
That's interesting.
And I just think that's a nice idea. Like,
that's really cool.
And a lot of people were also saying that, you know, Amber is your guardian angel,
right,
and all of these things. And, you know, I just think that it's amazing. And it's so, I just want to know more about this, and I want to hear more of these stories. So that'll be coming up. That's coming up.
Absolutely. Well, Maureen, I got a couple more here.
All right.
One Reddit user who goes by 7WRBNS worked as a forensic nurse in a hospital lockup unit. There, a patient was apparently attacked by a very aggressive and evil entity. And here's what they said.
I worked the night shift when a ward patient's relative came running to the nurse's station in a panic. "Nurse, come quick," she cried. "What happened? You have to see it for yourself." I ran to the ward where this little old lady patient was crying and holding on to the bed for dear life. Her bed was shaking. Now, you're probably thinking that the lady was the one causing all the shaking, but she was this frail, practically emaciated thing. She couldn't have barely rattled the bed rails. The ward had only 2 other patients in it and their respective watchers. Everyone was huddled in a corner, shaking in fright. Apparently, that particular ward was seldom used, and the bed that the old lady laid in was rarely occupied. People who have laid in it have complained of nightmares where they hear screams and laughter of angry children. I guess some restless spirit called dibs on that particular bed.
Whoa, the laughter of angry children.
Yeah, very weird.
Laughing in anger. Ha 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 ha, yeah!
Oh, God, Dylan.
That's how I would do it.
That was scary. But yeah, no, that does remind me of those little fuckers in Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes.
But yeah, that is freaky, that angry children.
Angry children.
Kind of coming back to that child who was a fucking asshole
Yeah.
earlier.
Wow. Well, Maureen, I got one more for you.
Oh, okay.
This one is a real head scratcher. This was posted to Reddit by a user named Walcott, who once worked as a psychiatric nurse at a residential mental health facility. While there, they treated a patient named Maureen Dylan. This person was an elective mute. Weird things seem to always orbit this patient, and here is the story.
He had spoken earlier in his life and in fact seemed quite normal back then, with the notable exception of being close to 7 feet tall. He'd been raised in the Deep South and joined the military when he was 19. After boot camp, he was stationed somewhere in the South. One night, he just vanished. It was declared an AWOL for years, and finally, he was declared missing and dead. 10 years later, a 7-foot-tall man walked into a VA hospital emergency room in my part of the Midwest and said to the receptionist, "My name is Maureen Dylan, and I've been dead for 10 years. Those were the last words he ever spoke. He was covered with dust, and he was wearing the same clothes he'd been reported to have been wearing the night he vanished. His social security number had not been used, and he had no identification on his person. However, they were able to identify him, I guess via fingerprints. He was well fed and in good health, except for his refusal to speak. The family was notified, but they said they had already grieved their lost man and that whomever was claiming to be him simply could not be. They said he was a haint and a stand-in for their dead relative and demanded not to be contacted again. Marion paced all day, every day, not in a frantic way, but just lumbering up and down the halls and outside. He smiled all the time and would be moving his mouth in a way that indicated talking or muttering, but he was dead silent. He had an unnerving habit of throwing his head back with his mouth wide open as if he were laughing heartily, but not even a breath could be heard. If told to go to the dining room for a meal, he'd go and eat, but if nobody told him, he just kept pacing, never indicating hunger. If offered a cigarette, he'd smoke it in an oddly formal way, almost delicately, if that makes sense. But he never seemed to crave smoking. The man wanted nothing. If I talked to him, he appeared to listen, periodically throwing his head back in that laughter-mimicking way of his. There was nothing to do for this man. Various medications were tried, but they did not affect him either positively or negatively. Occupational therapy did nothing because Marion would just grin, and unless told to stay put, he'd get up and start pacing again. On my last day at that job, on my way to something better, the last thing I saw was Marion, pacing in the parking lot, throwing his head back to laugh. Later, I wondered if all along I'd been dealing with a ghost. All these years later, I still don't know.
Wow. I mean, like, was that a changeling or like a doppelganger?
I mean, that's interesting, and that he spoke, I'm assuming, when he got there, when he said, I've been dead for 10 years, and then just went quiet. You're right. Was that a doppelganger or a changeling or some sort of...
Fairies are known to do that, too.
You would think the family would at least want to just see who this guy was.
Yeah, it's crazy that they were so certain that it wasn't him.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, how would he have just arrived there?
Yeah.
You know, like, how could that have happened? I mean, that is so scary. And, you know, we talked about haints during our dang Appalachian episode. High strangeness in Appalachia basically just means ghost, spooky thing, you know, whatever. Specter or something. I mean, yeah, that is a creepy story.
Very creepy, right?
Yeah.
And a weird one. Just weird.
Yes.
It's not like a haunt. That was just weird.
Yeah.
Well, Maureen, before you send us off, I just wanted to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Bree. She's an Instagram user who follows us and listens to the podcast. She's a nurse up in British Columbia. Her tag is I.B.Bree, B-R-I. You know, I asked her, had you ever had anything weird happen? And she responded, and I just wanted to read this real quick and give her a shout out.
Yeah.
She writes,
One place I worked at, the TVs in the empty rooms kept turning on all night, even though I would turn them off. Last summer, I took a travel assignment in remote northern British Columbia. The NICU unit was right below the pediatrics unit, specifically the play area. One night, we could hear what sounded like running. It was so loud, we actually phoned the other unit to ask what was going on, and they said all the kids were asleep. This was around 3 a.m. Shocker.
Oh my gosh.
Little shout out to Bree there, but
weird.
Very interesting, and a big shout out and a thank you to Bree for being a dedicated listener.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. We are beyond grateful for you. Thank you for
Yes.
being here, being a part of the squad, just popping off, and thank you for that story. That's creepy.
That's right. Now, Maureen, what do you have for us to send us off to bed?
I have one last thing, and I'm gonna be honest. This is not paranormal.
What?
This is of this realm, of this sphere, but it is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Okay.
And I think I mean that.
So this isn't hyperbole.
No. This might be the most insane thing I've ever heard of, and that includes all 190 episodes prior to this one of Creep Street.
Right.
So, yeah, buckle up, because here we go. This person, unfortunately, is not named. I would love to give him a shout out because this story, I mean, wow. But here we go.
I was shadowing a doctor, deciding if I wanted to be one, currently awaiting my interviews, and this woman came into the ER. I go in with my doctor, and she's acting very strangely. The doc asks her why she's here, and she says, "I have leaves growing out of my vagina." We look at each other, look back at her, and both say, "What?" at the same time. So she strips down, and sure enough, leaves. I grew up on a farm and recognize it right away, but keep my mouth shut. He puts in the speculum and says, "Aha!" and extracts a hollowed-out potato end. As soon as she sees it, she's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." This woman clearly has some other shit going on. So she tells us how her and her boyfriend wanted to have sex, but they didn't have a condom, and they couldn't find her cervical cap. They got creative and made one out of a potato. And she, quote, guesses she forgot about it. The image of leaves growing out of a vagina will haunt me to my dying day.
I mean,
My jaw is on the floor.
Dylan, I literally, when I read that, I clutched my chest.
First
I
of all,
gasped.
I'm just trying to imagine how you use a potato as a condom. I don't...
Or I think it was more for like a damn, whatever the fuck it's called when you put it in there.
Like a diaphragm? Like the...
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know,
And
just for the folks at home.
Does this mean it sprouted? Like it took root and sprouted?
Yes.
Jeez.
And it grew. There was going to be a whole ass potato at some point inside of her body.
Oh my God.
For the folks at home, potatoes and any other root vegetable are not effective forms of birth control, at this time, at least.
Oh God.
I can't believe it. The pain that she must have been feeling.
Oh my God.
The discomfort, but yet the pride. To know that not only is her body capable of gestating human life, it can gestate potato life as well.
Oh my God.
And I had to throw it in. I had to throw it in the episode because I was like, I wish that was a ghost story.
Oh
I
my
wish that
God.
was. I wish we could tell ourselves maybe that didn't happen, but I think it happened.
Oh.
Yeah.
Maureen,
Yeah.
I've got a list of names I wouldn't mind pulling a potato out of my body.
Okay. pop off.
Folks, give it on up for the Dream James Watkins, the Finnish face Via Lundqvist, the Madman Marcus Hall, the vivacious Vicky McHugh, the tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid, Chris Hackworth, the oh-so-suave Sean Richardson, the British Bone Breaker, Bex Martin, the notorious Nicholas Barker, the terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand, Noeline Vivilli, the loathsome Johnny Love, the carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the killer stud Carl Staub, the fire starter Heather Carter, the conqueror Christopher Damian Damaris, the awfully awesome Annie, the murderous Maggie Leach, the serf sexy Sam Hackworth, the evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren Hellfire Hernandez Lopez, the maniacal Laura Maynard, the arch nemesis Aaron Bird, the sadistic Sergio Castillo, the rapscallion Ryan Crum, the beast Benjamin Huang, the devilish Chris Doucette, the psycho Sam, the electric Emily Zhang, the renegade Corey Ramos, the crazed Carlos, the antagonist Andrew Park, the monstrous Michaela Scherer, the witchy wonder J.P. Weimer, the freaky Ben Forsyth, and the barbaric Andrew Barry.
Damn, I love when you list off those names.
Absolutely. And one more shout out for the savage Sam Samich.
Yes.
We are so happy that you finally joined the Creep Street Homeowners Association, and we hope to see you again at C2E2.
Thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers. We are so grateful for you. And we are, a little reminder, we are doing a big Patreon refresh this month. We will get that out to you soon. Sometime within the month, we will be announcing that about the bigger and better content that will be a part of our Patreon.
Yes.
So you can check that out over at patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast. Also, please like, rate, subscribe, leave a review. If you could go on Apple and/or Spotify podcasts, or anything, but especially those two, and leave us a review and or a rating, it would be just incredible for us, and it really helps out the cast. So we so appreciate it, and thank you so much.
And I just want to give a little birthday shout out to none other than my own sister, Sarah. Happy birthday, Sarah. We love you to the moon and back.
We love you, yes.
And we hope you have a wonderful time. We're about to go cut the cake right now, aren't we?
Oh my gosh, big time.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.
Bye.